Hello, everyone. Welcome to the WBGO studios. My name is Gary Walker. Spirituality in the music that we love has always had a powerful place. From the field hollers captured by Alan Lomax to the inspired messages from Sister Rosetta Tharpe, the sacred concerts of Duke Ellington, the transition of John Coltrane's playing, the composing and playing of Mary Lou Williams, the Abyssinian Mass from Wynton Marsalis, a new collection of hymns from Ron Carter and Dr. Ricky Dillard. When he was younger, vibraphonist Joel Ross was thrilled to meet master vibraphonist and marimbist Bobby Hutcherson, who pointed to the sky and said, "Play that." Well, for Ross, who grew up with music in a Chicago church, the advice was something that he always had in his heart. When studying at the New School in a class called Bach and Monk, he turned in his musical assignment titled Bach, God the Father in Eternity. It wasn't just the admired harmonies, but rather how he felt when he played beyond his instrument with others of like mind. Gospel Music, Ross's fifth album for the Blue Note label, alongside his Good Vibes Sextet, is a collection of musical messages based on scripture from the Bible. More purpose than palette. It's a revealing feeling of how the future doesn't have to be harnessed by the past or the present, but rather through music, how we all should feel about ourselves and others. And we welcome to the WBGO studios today vibraphonist Joel Ross. Powerful new recording, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Powerful new recording.
I
You grew
appreciate
up in a church in Chicago, so this has always been right here for you.
it. Yeah.
Your father taught in the church. You and your brother both played in the church,
Mhm.
and that has stayed with you for a long, long time. Parable and the Poet, New Blues, where you can hear God the Father in eternity, but you can also hear a really moving version of John Coltrane's Equinox,
Mhm.
which inspired Joel by listening to Kenny Garrett's recording, Pursuance. And it reminded me, man, of a day in 2013 when a group of us traveled by car to Easton, Pennsylvania for the memorial funeral service for the legendary Mulgrew Miller.
Mhm.
And there were pianists. Barry Harris was there,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of other cats. Everybody was playing and talking and sharing stories as people do. And at one moment, Kenny Garrett got up and he played all by himself, Dear Lord.
Mhm.
And the power of the Spirit in that room at that moment created a hush that I will never, ever forget. And it's that power in the music that leads you to create the music that you create, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How difficult is that? Because, you know, Sun Ra said, it's not about all my instruments. I got to get beyond the instruments. It's not, that's the palette.
Mhm.
My mission is the purpose. How difficult is that for you? And how does it align itself with you and the other members of your band to create this music in the spirit that you have created?
One, I wholeheartedly agree with Sunra on that, in that I don't tr- I don't limit myself to the instrument. Um, I've never, I guess, since I grew up in the church and playing music, I never limit myself to the instrument because one, I didn't start on the vibraphone, and two, I would say it's not too difficult in the sense of my relationship with music and then my faith related to the music was always conjoined together. With me being a twin, always having my brother with me in these musical situations. My music making was always geared towards another, working with another person, playing for and with another person. And then at the same time, when once we started playing in the church, my parents just made sure we understood that what we were doing is for something outside of ourselves. What we were doing is for, as it comes to the worship service, for worship and for fellowship and for this thing higher than ourselves. And so that was always the basis of music making for me, is this, making sure that what I'm doing serves the music and it serves the people. So with that in mind, it wasn't so difficult to bring this music to this band and have, I won't say have them understand, because it's not as if this was something that was understood immediately. I think as I have grown as a man and as and in my faith, in understanding how I relate to, so my father, he still teaches in the church, and he teaches the, what he calls his class is biblical relating, where it's how we relate to God, we relate to ourselves, we relate to each other, and we relate to our circumstances.
And as musicians, those concepts, I would think, being a non-musician, but I would think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it helps to blur the lines between written music and improvisation.
Yeah.
And that
So,
takes the music itself to a much higher level, doesn't it?
yeah. I think as I worked on those relations, as I related to the band, as we related to the music, it forms what the highest amount of trust with each other, and as well as responsibility towards the music. We just have a fundamental understanding. Like, for us to even get to something beyond what's on the page, we first have the personal responsibility to make sure we learn the music, that we practice the fundamentals, that we have all of that down. That's that personal responsibility is something that can be applied to anything.
Well, and that frees you up. I mean, that's one of the things I'm referring to when I say, playing beyond your instrument,
Yeah.
right? It's that kind of thing out there that's not really out there. You bring it in here, and that's how you create. Josh Johnson, the
Mhm.
newest member, Maria Grand on tenor saxophone, Jeremy Corrins piano, Kanoa Menda on bass, Jeremy Dutton on drums, some special guests, including your wife, a flugelhorn and voice, the voice of Enkep Nkweli, also Brandy Younger, are all to be found on this recording. Talk about Wisdom is Eternal
Mhm.
for Barry Harris.
Yeah.
Talk about that, too.
uh that it came from two places, uh which kind of in line with what I was just saying. Years ago, I was talking with my good friend Emmanuel Wilkins, and another good friend Micah Thomas, and of the many conversations we would have, focusing on getting better or what we need to do next. Uh, and they were, they were clowning me a little bit, as friends do. They were like, "Man, we know you're good. We know you're a good player. We know you can hear these things. You can do whatever you want, but we can tell you didn't transcribe a bunch of Bird." And I'm like, "That's true. That's valid. I didn't, especially compared to what they worked on." And what we were talking about were the way that my lines were formed, the way I was forming my lines uh, when I was improvising, and the connection to how Bird, Barry Harris, Bud Powell, all these, uh, a lot of the original creators of the bebop language were using their lines, which, as I then took that as a challenge to work on, uh, there was this thing that Barry Harris was teaching. I think it's the major diminished sixth scale. I think that's what it was called, which is basically a major scale, or however you want to think about it, a major sixth chord with a diminished chord thrown in there, and what it allows for is a fluidity in the way you can navigate building your lines. And that was something I had not worked on prior to that conversation. And so at the time, I just took to working on that, putting that in my language. Um, and then after listening to a bunch of his lessons, after working with Barry, um, this melody, I was just, I think, improvising on piano, and this melody just came to mind here. I might have been on a gig with Casa overall, or might have been messing around with Casa somewhere actually. Um, because on the sheet music, I have that Casa helped me write it. So in some way, shape, or form, he was involved.
But that's what Barry preached, if I can use that word, at the Jazz Cultural Theater to
Mhm,
everybody that walked in the door there. I mean, I sat in on some of those sessions. I didn't play, but I was in the audience. And, it was remarkable how he would get people to think beyond the written piece, beyond the music that was in front of them,
mhm,
and get to explore and get to travel. And that's where the spirituality comes in,
mhm.
however you want to explain it. And this is a cat, I don't know if you knew this, when he was in high school, he and another guy used to play duets for the high school, Northeast High School in Detroit, Michigan. And you know who the other guy was?
Who was it?
Barry Gordy.
Oh, that's hilarious.
He told me that, and it just floored me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I asked him, I said, well, did the other guy go anywhere in music? And he goes, well, sort of,
Somewhere.
sort of. But wisdom is eternal for Barry Harris,
Mhm.
and also inspired by the scripture. Is this Corinthians?
Yeah, it's what it's talking about is this the fundamentals of the creation of everything, basically. I saw that as Barry explaining the fundamentals of this music and this language, and I was relating it to the fundamentals of the earth creation was built on wisdom, the wisdom of God. And so it was created related to this verse in First Corinthians, Genesis, uh, just about the fundamental use of wisdom, which Barry represented, I believe, in all of our hearts. Uh, Wisdom as the foundation of everything.
On your recording, you musically portray, if you will, certain elements that we find in scripture. I'm using, for example, the tune entitled Hostile,
Mhm,
where there is a rambunctiousness,
mhm,
an anger, if you will, before the great flood.
mhm.
And that was an inspiration that you somehow were able to convey on this new recording, gospel music, your fifth, I believe,
Yeah.
for the Blue Note record label. Now, everybody in this band, they did not grow up in the church. What are the elements, aside from music, that allow you? It's funny, this week on my New Day, New Play, it's drummer Mike Clark, and it's a record called Itai Doshin, which is a Buddhist term that refers to out of many bodies, one mind.
Mhm.
How do you accomplish that with the musicians in your band?
By leading by example, by my growth in my faith and my wanting to exemplify the character of Jesus in my how to relate to each other, how I'm relating to myself, and how I'm relating to the circumstances. I'm just presenting how the music can be and should be performed, and my actions and are hopefully encouraging them to follow suit. I
And
don't.
and think beyond the Bible for a moment, folks.
Mm,
When Dizzy Gillespie makes a statement that says, I've been playing the trumpet for 50, 60 years. If that's not worship, I don't know what is.
mm,
Also, the words of James Baldwin. Talk about that piece. I believe it's a piece called The Giver.
The Giver. Yeah, that was another assignment actually, at, composed around the same time as Bach. It was a poetry class because I wanted to get more into using words with music, and I think we had an assignment to take the words of James Baldwin and put music to it. And I remember coming across that poem, and honestly, the way it's used on the album was the way it came across when I first read it, about someone giving themselves for others. Um, though the only difference is that for it to align with scripture, I had to get permission from the Baldwin estate to just change the last word. Uh, and the giver goes down on his knees in prayer. Originally, it's knows that all of his giving has been for naught, but to represent scripture, I said knows that all of his giving has been for all, to represent that the magnanimity of the of his giving. You know how it represents giving his life for everybody. You know.
And from a musical place, I should mention to the folks watching right now that this record sparkles. And after one listen, if you don't feel better about yourself, you need a checkup from the neck up, my friend, because it does, because it's all right there. And the complexities of the music are made to seem, and I know better, but they're made to seem so much more simpler. And I think it's because it's the language that brings you to the setting in the first place before you ever pick up a saxophone, before you ever put the mallets in your hands, before you ever sit behind the drum set. There's an attitudinal thing that comes through on this recording that allows you, and I'm telling you, man, some of this music is pretty damn complex, but it's executed in a way that takes you along for the ride. Not, some complex music is like it leaves you out on the curb and it's like, there'll be an Uber along for you shortly. But music like this, the complexities, because of the intent going in, allow you to really embrace this music. Not as wholeheartedly as musicians making it, but certainly enough to enjoy it. The record is called Gospel Music, and it's Joel Ross, our guest on the WBGO studios. He's going to take this on the road. He gets to go home to Chicago in April. I would imagine Daddy will be showing up for that one.
Of course, yeah.
And then going to places like Warsaw and Gdansk, where, they need some of this, man. They need some of this around the world. Spreading the gospel of good music on Gospel Music. Joel Ross, our guest on the WBGO studios. And this record has just come out. It's one of a couple that you actually have out right now. This tour will take you, as I mentioned, around the world. What's going to happen when you come home?
I'm already working on the next thing.
Is that right? Can you share a little taste?
It's not, it's, I have things in mind. What usually happens is we release the album, and then as we go to tour, we're already working on ideas for the next thing. So I've just been introducing new pieces here and there. The same with this album. It's never fully realized until we figure it out all together. So right now I'm just bringing the ideas, and we're just continuing to grow together and figure it out.
Well, the ideas all come together, man. And there's a communion, if you will,
Yeah.
that takes place and should take place in any musical setting. And if you've ever been in an audience where it wasn't taking place, oh, when's intermission, man? So I can get the hell out of here. But when it's not that way, when it is an experience like what's inside this new recording on Blue Note Gospel Music, you're going to hang, man. you're going to hang. You might even want to call off tomorrow. Joel Ross, thank you so much for being with us here today on WBGO and the WBGO studios. When you're not playing music, what do you like to do?
My wife and I love to play video games.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And who's the better of the two?
Uh, she's got me beat at several different several different things, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, man, no, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Well, good vibes to you, my friend. Thank you for stopping by and talking about this new recording on Blue Note.
Thank you so
And
much.
we look forward to seeing you live, folks. He'll be on tour. You can go to joelross.com
Mhm.
and get his schedule. As I mentioned, he's going to be in his hometown of Chicago. You know that's going to sparkle at the Jazz Showcase in April and then off to Europe and all around. Joel Ross, thank you for your good vibes. Always, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.